My spouse is Andy Allen. He's locally famous. Um, only if you like improv. He is on a four-man improv team called Pop Scholars, and they're really funny. We met when he was in college, but I was a working woman. I was 4 years older and still am. And he was doing an improv show, and I thought he was really funny and cute.
I will have been married 35 years this summer. I'm married to Gretchen. Her name was Gretchen Dykstra. She is from Dearborn. We met at Calvin. We were in the same dorm, and her cousin knew me from high school and introduced us. And we were friends, just, we would talk. And then I set her up with somebody else, and I went out with somebody else, and then both those relationships kind of crumbled over a summer just from distance. And then we talked for a long time about those relationships one fall at school in the library, and then we decided we would be friends. So we started calling each other, and then ended up going out, and then ended up not going out, and then ended up going out again, and then got married.
So my wife's name is Nellie, and we met when we were at Calvin together. We were friends for, a good amount of time, same friend group in college, and then right kind of towards the end of college, we started dating. She's Canadian, so she grew up in Ontario, just like an hour or so over the border from Detroit. And then so she just moved here to go to Calvin. And then, so we married in 2000. Well, we actually had two weddings. We got married twice because we got married in 2000. We got married in 2006 because it was kind of like a green card situation. So we went to a courthouse and got married just a couple months after we had gotten engaged. But then the following summer in 2007, we had our whole church wedding.
Very nice.
I'm married to my wife, Amber. We've been married for 28 years. 28 years, yep. I met her when we were both working on the grounds on the grounds at Calvin in the summer. We both went to Calvin, but we really didn't meet there. She had dated a friend of mine, and I knew of her, but we worked on the grounds at Calvin, and we met and started dating then.
Can you tell me, what was your first date like?
Yeah, but we have arguments about it still because he promises that he was the one who asked me out, but I am legitimately confirming that I proposed the notion to him because I was an older woman, because he wouldn't have asked me. He thought I was on like this other tier of life.
Which you are.
Which I still am.
We kind of just hung out when we went out for a little while in the winter, and then we broke up just after 3 days.
Can you describe what was your first date like? What'd you do? Who asked out who? Where'd you go?
Well,
Special?
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. We were on the grounds and we were working the same project together. My roommate and I and Amber, and we started talking, and she said that she would come and make us dinner sometime at our house. So at our college house. So we arranged it for Friday evening that she was going to make dinner for my roommate and I, who she worked with. And then I told my roommate to beat it, and he did. So she just made dinner for me, and I guess that was our first date.
Our relationship was just a lot different than that because we did not really, since we were friends for so long, we didn't really have a quintessential first date, we just sort of gradually transitioned to a more, romantic relationship as we got to the end of college. People start to think, oh man, college is almost over. I'm supposed to have a spouse by now, aren't I? So, we've been friends for a while, so why don't we just start dating?
The funny thing is, when we did that, I had cleaned up. I lived in Mr. Borst will tell you, he thinks I lived below the level of civilization. We lived in a house that was there were 5 guys and none of us were real clean, but I cleaned up the house for 3 straight days, picking up, moving stuff, vacuuming, all that stuff. She revealed to me after we had dated for about 6 months that first date, when she walked into our house, she said it was the most disgusting place she had ever been to. And I had to tell her that I had cleaned up for 3 days before she got there. So I'm not like that anymore, though.
Okay.
He was a college junior and I was a full-time employed working woman. It just felt different, I think. So he was not 21 yet. And when he turns 21, I said, okay, I can ask him out. Like I just kind of had a barrier set in my mind because I was 25. And so I was like, okay, he's 21. I'll take him out. And so I Facebooked him. And yeah, I know. Well, the first thing I did was I let a little line out on his page, on his wall. I had written, I have a crush on your sense of humor. And that tipped off the whole thing. Because if you know any comedians or any people who think they're funny, the best way to their heart is by a compliment about their comedic side. So I think that was a good one.
But we had actually gone on a trip together to visit another friend at a different school, and it was something where we had originally planned on having like a few friends from Calvin go to this other school for a weekend to visit this other guy, but it ended up being a bunch of people had to drop out of the trip, and so it ended up being just Nellie and I going. And we had always been a part of this bigger friend group, but we had never spent a lot of time, just the 2 of us together. And all of a sudden we're taking this weekend trip together and, just as friends the whole time. But I think when we got back from that trip, we sort of felt a little differently about each other. We really enjoyed spending time just one-on-one. And I think both of us came back from the trip starting to see some potential in the other person. So I guess that wasn't a first date, but that was the first time we had started to move our relationship in a different direction.
But anyway, our first actual date was me taking him out to some, I think I called them posh, like swanky or posh locales downtown GR. So we went, I guess you would call it bar hopping, but it wasn't like to go drinking. It was just to like go to swanky places. Like we went to Bardavani, and then we went to Mixology, and then we went to, we started at the Graham, which we've never been back to, but we do like art. It was funny. It was more of a conversation starter and like icebreaker, like how's he going to react if I take him to the Graham? And he was very funny. And then we went to Mixology and Bardavani. And later he proposed to me at Bardavani. So that was like full circle.
And then at the beginning of the summer, she said, I would like to go out with you again. And I said, it's summer, so let's kind of wait and see till fall. But then our really first date where we did something and kind of became the path towards couplehood or whatever that is, was a trip to Yellowstone National Park. She had never been west of the Mississippi. She really wanted to. She had a friend out there and she said, backpacking, can you go with me and pick up that friend? So it was 3 people. It was always chaperoned. So we drove out there and picked up her friend and backpacked, and then that was our first date.
Great. If you have a date night, what is your go-to?
It's the Cottage Bar. I just say, you want to go out there? And we'll go there and maybe take a walk, or go there and maybe catch a movie, or go there and just come home and watch something on Netflix. And then our second go-to date is to just go for a hike. She really likes the North Country Trail, and we'll try to catch that at least once a week, 3 or 4 miles, or 7. We did 7 the other day on some section of the North Country Trail.
Nice.
Okay, so Andy and I are funny in that we do a lot of social things that aren't dates. So we have a lot of babysitters for those things. And so our date night is not generally what other people might do, because we do a lot of things out of the house anyway. Like we'll do improv shows or we'll do dinner things or we'll have get-togethers. So our date night, we actually prefer to just be home because it saves money on the babysitter thing.
Usually, if we go on a date night, we'll try to pick a place that we haven't been to before, and maybe a place that's we've heard that's pretty good, and we'll just go out for dinner. And then what's been happening lately, then when we're at dinner, we'll kind of connect with some of our friends and then meet someplace later. So to go and hang out with our friends and if they can do it. But that's a normal date night. It's not too exciting.
Yeah, I think going out to eat is always part of it. Going out to like we love to go to new restaurants, new places that have opened. You know, Grand Rapids is good for that. There's always seems to be new places opening up. New, it's like visiting those places, and we both love going to movies as well. So if there's something out there that we want to see, then a restaurant and a movie night is pretty typical.
But if we had a babysitter, this happens every now and again. We have a babysitter and something gets canceled that we already have a babysitter for. We will just go and surprise drop in on people, like knock on our friends' doors that we know will be home, and then we just come in and then we just hang out.
Do you have a favorite restaurant or place that you like to go?
Yeah,
like,
you know what it is.
I know, but like, tell the kids, what's your favorite?
La Cantina. La Cantina. It's a Mexican restaurant, and it's really good Mexican food. And we go down in the basement with bean dip and chips for free, and we hang out down there, and it's awesome.
What dating advice would you give to students?
You know, I like parts of their culture of dating. I like the idea of talking and how important that is. I think that's how good relationships start. You start talking together.
What is one piece of dating advice that you would give to high school students today?
Okay, for sure, I've got some advice. I only have my experience, obviously, but in high school, because I think this worked for me. Of course, I dated. Of course, I dated a lot of people because I was interested in people, and I didn't really have like a social group necessarily that I stayed in because I did a lot of different things. But I dated only people that did not go to my school. Yeah. And I have never regretted that because I still see people. I mean, living in Grand Rapids, you will still run into people that you went to high school with if you remain here, and you can't plan on where you're going to end up. So you just don't know.
I think the advice I would give to high schoolers is that don't worry about dating, you know? Like I look back on a couple high school relationships that I had, and it always seemed a little bit forced to me. Like I kind of felt like in my mind, oh, I'm supposed to ask girls out. I'm supposed to go on a date. If I don't do that, I'm like behind or something. But looking back on it, I think it's much better to just sort of relax and let things happen more naturally instead of trying to force it.
But I think avoiding my small group of friends in high school, because they all interdated and it was weird. And there was a lot of weirdness, and it all still comes up at like our French Christmas parties or at like, there's all this weirdness. And I'm just so glad that I avoided that. And now I can live in like, basically freedom a little bit.
Don't feel like you need to go out on a date with anybody. Hang out in bigger groups. And, if you start to get, feelings for somebody else, then maybe you can pursue it. But I think just don't force it. Don't feel like you need to would be my message.
I would also say definitely don't try to be someone you're not, because it comes out in the wash. Also, if you're like trying to be someone you're not and you're with someone who's trying to be someone they're not, it's not gonna work because you can't fake it forever. So be you and then have fun.
I just think you should dare to talk more, have more coffees and more, I don't know, Zoom talking together, or just dare to talk to a group of people that you don't necessarily progress past that to dating. I just think that's healthy to have lots of good friends, and some of those flower in different directions, and that's fine and good and healthy. I think that would be my just little bit of advice.